All right, everyone. So here we are. Let's get started. Our first topic of the semester is homeostasis. We're going to be talking about, in this recording, about homeostasis and homeostatic set point. Okay, and here are the questions that we are venturing to answer in this part of the lecture. Okay, first, what is homeostasis and why is it important? And secondly, what is a set point? So let's get started. Okay, so first question that I have for you is, what is homeostasis? And if you take a look at your worksheet, you'll see that that is a question on your worksheet. Okay, in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to pause this video and write down an answer to that. Okay, but basically before that, I just want to let you know that the answer that I'm looking for is just whatever you can think of. Okay, so like, if you've heard of the word homeostasis, but you don't really know what it means, go ahead and write that down. If you think you know what it means, but you're not sure, go ahead and write that down. Just whatever you happen to know about it, okay? So right now, go ahead and pause and answer the question. Okay, so hopefully you have paused and you have answered that question on your worksheet. Now I'm going to tell you my take on what homeostasis is. Okay, so just looking at the word roots, okay, you can see that the term homeo means similar, okay, and the term stasis means condition, right? So basically homeostasis is keeping your body in a quote unquote similar condition. Okay, so you want to keep certain constants within your body, certain variables within your body, you want to keep them constant in order to keep your body functioning, right? So if you think about cell function, right, and the various parts of the cell, cells are actually really, really finicky, and they need things to be perfect in order to function properly, okay? And that's what homeostasis is all about, is we want to keep all of our conditions within our body optimal so that our bodies actually work correctly, okay? Okay, so here's another question for you, another question for your worksheet, okay? Can you think of a variable that we monitor and keep constant in our bodies? Okay, so what is something in your body that needs to stay at a particular value or in a particular state in order for your body to be able to function properly? Okay, so go ahead and hit that pause button and fill that out on your worksheet. I'll give you a few seconds. I'll pause here. Okay, so hopefully you have answered that question. We will discuss your ideas when we meet up in class. Right now, we will move ahead, okay? And what I want to do right now is I want to give you a couple examples of the kinds of things that we need to keep constant in our bodies in order for our bodies to function properly, right? So here's an example. Enzymes, right? So hopefully you remember from general bio that enzymes need certain conditions in order to function properly, right? So here's an example. In this diagram, we see a graph of protein activity relative to temperature, right? So if an enzyme is at its optimal temperature, it will be folded correctly in order to carry out its function, right? So remember that an enzyme's function is very dependent on its shape, okay? And its shape is very dependent on the temperature, right? So you need to be at the right temperature to function correctly, okay? And hopefully you guys also remember enzymes are all over our body. They carry out all kinds of functions in our bodies. So it's very important for them to function properly, okay? Looking towards the right on this diagram, you can see that if we go up to a high temperature, such as 50 degrees Celsius, that's going to unfold the protein, okay? The enzyme, which, you know, as hopefully you guys remember, most enzymes are proteins. So we're going to unfold this protein. And once we unfold the protein is not going to have its normal shape. If it doesn't have its normal shape, it's not going to be able to interact with other molecules in the way that it was intended to. And its function is basically gone, right? So it's lost its function, okay? Moving on to the next slide. Here's another example of where optimal conditions are critical, okay? So this example is a neuron in the brain. So in maybe a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be talking about this in much greater depth. But suffice it to say, hopefully you already know this, that neurons in the brain are capable of sending electrical signals, right? What you might not know at this point, and you're not expected to know this, but you will be expected to know it in about 3 weeks, excuse me, is that this electrical signaling is highly dependent on the concentrations of certain ions inside and outside of the neuron. Namely, we're interested here in sodium and potassium, as you will see when we cover this later on. Okay. What happens if you don't keep things at their optimal values? Basically what happens is you get sick, okay? So this is just kind of a silly diagram that shows that these variables that we're trying to keep constant, they're constantly changing, okay? And our bodies have built-in mechanisms to bring our variables back to the range that we want them to be in, right? So if we have a loss of homeostasis that occurs when there's some sort of challenge to our systems, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to try to compensate for that. We're going to react to that. We're going to try to bring it back, okay? If we succeed, we stay healthy, okay? If we fail at bringing our variable back to its desired value, then that can lead to disease,